Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. President Donald Trump still meeting face-to-face with world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. Moments ago, he sat down with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, took questions about Russia. Here's a look into what happened.
Do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Mr. President, any update on your talks with President Putin, and do you still trust him?
I'll let you know in about a month from now, okay?
President
Mr.
Trump, your
President, are
message
you willing
to
to provide Ukraine with the security guarantees the same way as European allies
Well, that's
do?
later down the road. We'll be talking about that. Hopefully, we'll be in a position to talk about that a little bit later on. It's a little bit too early to answer
Why
that
do you
question.
think Mr. Putin is
Yeah,
not
go
willing
ahead,
to meet
please.
with both of you
President
at the same
Trump, your
time?
message to President Orban, who is refusing to stop buying Russian oil.
Well, he's a friend of mine. I have not spoken to him, but I have a feeling if I did, he might stop, and I think I'll be doing that.
What progress do you think has been made on ending Russia's war against Ukraine since the last time you saw President Zelenskyy?
Well, the biggest progress is that the Russian economy is terrible right now. It's, as you know, it's crashing. And that, frankly, Ukraine is doing a very good job of stopping this very large army. It's pretty amazing. You know, this is a war that should have ended in 3 days, 4 days. People said it was going to be very quick, and you got to hand it to the Ukrainian soldiers and everybody involved. It's still going on, and that's not a good thing for Russia. This was supposed to be quick, and so, you know, Russia doesn't look very distinguished, having taken 3.5 years now, right? It's about 3.5 years of very hard fighting, and it looks like it's not going to end for a long time.
Mr. President, have you been briefed on the latest alleged drone incursions to Denmark? What do you think of that? And
Where are they?
Into Denmark, Copenhagen. Denmark is saying that there were some drones that took down the airport, possibly Russian sabotage. What's your response to that? Will the U.S. have a material?
Well, I have no response until I find out exactly what happened. I know about it, but they don't know what happened. But we're going to find out very soon.
Sir.
Would you back up NATO allies? You said that you thought that they should shoot down the Russian aircraft. Would you back them up? Would the United States help them out in some way?
Depends on the circumstance, but, you know, we're very strong toward NATO. NATO stepped up. You know, when they went from 2% to 5%, that was great unity. Trillions of dollars is being pumped in, and they're paying us for the weapons that we send. But that was a big day. That nobody thought a thing like that could happen. You had countries that weren't paying 2%, and now they're all paying 5%. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of weapons they're buying, and they're buying them from us. They're buying them from the U.S. You know, in the old days, Biden gave them everything, gave them $350 billion worth of money and weapons. That's a lot of money and a lot of weapons, and we got really not much for it. We gave the money to Ukraine to fight, and they've proven they're very brave. I mean, look, they're fighting, and this is a war going on 3.5 years, and people thought it would be over quickly because Russia's a big military power, and Ukraine, I tell you, they are good fighters. Got to hand it to them. They have a lot of courage, a lot of guts. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, if you sense some discomfort there, that's for good reason. President Donald Trump asked by not only reporters from the United States, but reporters from Europe and around the world about his reaction to many things that all have fingers into Vladimir Putin of Russia and Russia. One of the big headlines is, does he support those NATO nations shooting down Russian aircraft? He said very quickly, yes. Now, of course, you've got to think about what Mr. Trump's options are where Vladimir Putin is concerned. And of course, one is sanctions. In fact, today at the United Nations, he told those UN member nations, stop buying Russian oil. So much more to come on that angle. But really, let's frame this. He's sitting side by side with Volodymyr Zelenskyy of Ukraine. What a difference several months makes when we talk about the evolution of the relationship between those two world leaders. The president praising Ukraine's army and their capability to fight.
We start in New York, where President Trump is meeting with world leaders following his address at the UN General Assembly. And during his remarks, the president berated the UN, questioning the purpose of the organization. He also touted American excellence while discussing his administration's impact on global affairs since taking office.
What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. The only thing that solves war and wars is action.
After his remarks, President Trump sat down for a highly anticipated meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. President Trump saying NATO should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace. This follows an alleged breach of airspace into Estonia and previously Poland.
Do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Mr. President, any update on your talks with
All right, let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi now joining us from our D.C. bureau. Olivia, very good to see you here. Can you talk more about what more we know about those talks between Zelenskyy and Trump today?
Well, Nancy, it's good to be with you. It's just one of a number of bilateral meetings that the president is having on the side of the UN General Assembly happening today in New York. President sitting down with President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. And of course, this comes just weeks after that huge meeting that happened here in Washington between Zelenskyy and the Coalition of the Willing, which is about 7 countries that are focused on an end to the war in Ukraine and preserving Ukrainian sovereignty. Now, of course, President Trump sitting there with Zelenskyy. You see it there on the screen, them talking about how to get an end to this war, especially after President Trump had that meeting with President Putin back in August that really has not come to fruition as far as ending the war. The president also said today during his speech to the entire assembly that it's embarrassing that Europeans are still buying Russian oil and products, energy products, I should say, that is helping fund the war in Ukraine. Now, before he met with Zelenskyy, the president sat down with President Ursula von der Leyen of the European Commission, and she said he's right and that they need to stop purchasing those products, find a way out or an alternative to help stop funding this war in Ukraine. So expecting perhaps some news out of that today as the two leaders meet, and especially as the president continues to send Secretary Rubio and his special envoy Steve Witkoff to the region to try to negotiate some type of an end to this war.
All right, Olivia Rinaldi joining us there from Washington, D.C. Olivia, thank you.